They say every antique has a story. I was drawn to this one, though I couldn't explain why. The mirror stood tall in the corner of the shop, its ornate gilt frame dull with age but still beautiful in its craftsmanship. The glass was slightly warped, as if time had left its fingerprints on its surface. I told myself it would be perfect for my bedroom, an elegant piece to offset the modern furniture. The old shopkeeper hesitated when I pointed it out. "That one?" she asked, her eyes darting briefly to the mirror. "It's ... been here a long time. Not many care for it." "All the more reason to take it," I said, trying to sound cheerful. She didn't argue, but her expression shifted into something between resignation and relief as she rang up my purchase. The mirror fit perfectly against the wall across from my bed. It dominated the space, commanding attention. But as I stepped back to admire it, I felt a strange unease settle in. Like the air itself had thickened. I brushed it off as exhaustion. Moving furniture is tiring, after all. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. The mirror reflected the faint glow of my bedside lamp, casting strange shadows on the ceiling. I turned over, facing away from it, but the feeling of being watched gnawed at me. Days passed, and little things began to happen. At first, I convinced myself they were coincidences. My keys weren't where I had left them. The door to my closet swung open when I knew I'd closed it. Objects seemed to shift subtly when I wasn't looking. But the strangest part was the mirror. The glass never seemed clean. No matter how much I wiped it down, there was always a faint smudge, like a handprint blurred by condensation. I told myself it was just the old glass, nothing more. Still, I started avoiding it. Then there were the sounds, soft creaks and faint whispers in the dead of night. At first, I thought it was the house settling. But when I got out of bed to investigate, the noises would stop, only to resume as soon as I lay down again. One evening, while brushing my hair in front of the mirror, I noticed something peculiar. My reflection didn't quite match my movements. It was subtle, a half-second delay, maybe less. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. "You're imagining things," I told myself. I began covering the mirror with a sheet at night. It helped, a little. Out of sight, out of mind, I told myself. But even with it hidden, the unease lingered, like the mirror's presence bled through the fabric. The bedroom didn't feel like my own anymore. It was as though the mirror had claimed the space. One morning, I woke to find the sheet crumpled on the floor. I was sure I had tucked it in securely the night before. My breath caught as I stared at the uncovered glass, its surface dull in the morning light. For a moment, I thought I saw something shift in the reflection, a flicker of movement just behind me. My chest tightened, and I spun around, heart pounding. There was nothing there. But the feeling stayed with me, crawling under my skin. That was the last time I used the mirror. I couldn't bring myself to touch it, much less look into it. I wanted to get rid of it, but every time I thought about selling it or throwing it away, a strange reluctance held me back. Instead, I started sleeping on the couch. The disturbances lessened when I stayed away from the bedroom, but they didn't stop entirely. Objects still moved without explanation. A chair pulled slightly away from the table. A book turned face down when I knew I'd left it open. Shadows seemed darker, more alive. One day, I returned home from work to find the mirror cracked. A single, jagged line ran down the center of the glass, splitting my warped reflection in two. The sight of it sent a chill through me. I hadn't heard anything while I was away, no crash, no thud to suggest it had fallen or been struck. The frame was still upright, the floor around it undisturbed. That was the final straw. I called a friend to help me move it out to the garage. As we carried it down the hallway, the air seemed colder, heavier, as though the mirror itself was resisting. Neither of us said anything, but I could tell my friend felt it too, by the way she hurried to finish the task. Now the mirror sits in the garage, draped in a heavy tarp. I've thought about selling it or taking it to the dump, but I can't seem to go through with it. I tell myself it's laziness or forgetfulness, but deep down I know better. It's the same feeling that kept me from leaving it behind in the first place. I catch myself staring at the garage door now, the unease settling deep in my stomach like a stone. The feeling is the same as the first night the mirror entered my home, heavy, watching, waiting.